Hey, did I catch you at a bad time? Whatever. I'm here now. You can just pretend you meant to pick up. I figured I'd give you a call and see if you wanted to do some co-working. I mean, you don't have to say yes, but let's be real. I already started talking, so you're kind of stuck with me now. You know how we always say we don't have enough time to draw? Well, I swear it's so much easier to get stuff done when you have someone else working next to you. So go ahead, grab your sketchbook, turn on your tablet, or honestly, just let me ramble in the background while you do whatever. I'll carry the conversation, no worries. You just focus on your art, or cleaning your room, or doom scrolling instead of drawing. Absolutely no shame, we've all been there. Alright, let's do this. I want to work on a challenge I saw on Instagram some days ago. One of those make an OC challenges where the instructions are like, if you have siblings, give the OC long hair. If you have pets, give them fangs. If you have whatever, give them this random feature, you know? You've surely seen lots of those. I find them so funny and a great way to spark inspiration when you just don't know what to draw. And sometimes they make the most chaotic OCs ever, like imagine getting, I don't know, a prompt that forces you to design a pirate with rainbow hair, wearing a tuxedo, and wielding a baguette as a weapon. You know that OC would be an icon. But also, what even is that kind of concept? But most of the time, the subjects of these challenges aren't much to my taste because they're like, let's make a fairy OC or a vampire OC, and I don't know, I'm not usually into fantasy stuff like those. But then I saw this one from Unastrana or Unastrana, I don't know how to pronounce that, where you make a Pokemon trainer. And I immediately wanted to try this because let's be real, if there's any way to get me to actually do an art challenge, it's by slapping Pokemon on it. Instant motivation boost. I barely play Pokemon games nowadays, but it was a big part of my childhood, especially the Ruby Sapphire edition. Oh boy, I love those. They were my first Pokemon games. I replayed them so many times as a kid, like I was obsessed. You know, when you start a new game, but you keep picking the same starter because you just can't betray them. Yeah, that was me. Third chick supremacy forever. And then the Emerald version as well. I think it's actually my favorite one out of the 3 games because it mixes the stories of the first 2, plus it's got a green, legendary, and super awesome Pokemon like Rayquaza. Give me that cyber green dragon thingy, please. I remember how difficult it was for me to find it. You had to like climb to the top of a tower or something like that, but you only could get there with a specific kind of bike, and you had to move really fast because the floor would crumble under your feet. And of course, the game doesn't tell you how to do it properly, so you just keep yeeting yourself into the abyss over and over. Like, oh cool, I just fell from the 20th floor or something, but I'm fine. Like in the movies, you know? All my bones are okay somehow. I can just climb up again. What a nightmare that was. I don't know how much time it took me to get there, but it was a lot. If Pokemon games have taught me something, is patience. Patience to solve their stupid riddles, patience to throw ball after ball to try to catch that stupid Pokemon that I would never probably use in the end. Or alternatively, the pure desperation of using your last Ultra Ball, failing, and then throwing a random Pokeball out of spite only for it to work magically. Like, excuse me? The math ain't mathing. But okay, I'll take it. So I had to give my trainer the following features. They were to be an adult with long hair, glasses, their Pokeball would be a quick ball, and they'd wear sporty clothes and be a ground or psychic type of trainer. I didn't know how to choose the Pokemon type by using my real name or my artist name, so I was like, why not both? I love dual type Pokemons, so it made sense in my head. The problem is there are only 2 Pokemons with this combination in the entire game series. Baltoy and Claydol. Definitely far from my favorites. That's what I get for being indecisive. I should have just lied, said my name was something else so I could get cooler Pokemon, but no. I had to be honest, and now I'm stuck with these weird spinning angel doll-like creatures. But you know what? I thought, Rina, you've barely ever drawn Pokemons in your life, so they're gonna look terrible, regardless of what you choose. Don't stress so much about it. At least they have easy shapes, to put it somehow. They're mostly round and remind me of weird-looking dolls with a big head and a small body. They're not that different from my chibis, in fact. So while I struggled with them because it's not something I'm used to drawing, I should consider myself lucky in that sense. I could have gotten something way worse. By the way, do you know the sizes of these 2 Pokemons? I always find these things so funny because sometimes I think a Pokemon is gonna be huge, and then I look up their details and they're super tiny, or the other way around. Not talking about a certain ridiculously big whale-like Pokemon. I got a pretty good idea of Baltoy's size. They're supposed to be around 50 centimeters tall, so kind of like a really big doll, for example, or a small pet, something you can easily hold close to your chest. And since Claydol is their evolution, I thought they were going to be similar in size, just a chunkier version. But Claydols are supposed to be 1.5 meters on average. That's the size of a real person. Like, if Pokemons were real, Claydols would be just a bit shorter than me. What the hell? That's huge. We wouldn't be able to fit inside of my room together, given how round and thick they are. It would be like having a planet following me around all day, probably. I doubt they'd be able to cross the threshold. They would need a house specifically made for them with huge doors, or just a loft type of house without any walls around. Actually, hold on. Do you think I could ride a Claydol? Like, if it's already floating and it's that big, in theory, I could just sit on it like a little personal spaceship, right? That would save me a lot of transport money now that I think about it. Anyway, I allowed myself a bit of freedom with the sizing this time. Otherwise, it would be too hard to fit everything in the same drawing with the composition that I had in mind. So let's pretend that the Claydol in this illustration is a bit smaller than the average one. I mean, Pokemon designs already are inconsistent in the anime, so I feel like I can have some artistic freedom too. I thought about using this challenge to make a trainer version of my OC Rina, because I already had to give her glasses, and while I usually draw Rina with short hair nowadays, she used to have a long curly mane when I first created her many years ago. Also, Pokemon trainers usually have some big or weird hair shape in the show, so I thought, let's go crazy with the hair, make it super curly and flowy. Who cares if it looks unrealistic? It's a Pokemon OC after all. Some of these characters walk around with physics-defying hair sculptures on the show, and somehow nobody questions it. Also, according to the challenge, I had to make her look adult, because the prompt was, if you collect Pokemon cards, your trainer is a teenager, and if you don't collect Pokemon cards, your trainer is an adult. I'll admit I did not think much about her age as I was drawing her. Because at the end of the day, I take these challenges as an excuse to draw and try new things, not as strict rules that I have to follow. Plus, I could argue that I don't collect cards nowadays, but I used to collect these Pokemon, I think they're called Pogs in English. I don't know. We call them Tazos in Spain. They were like plastic discs that you had to throw onto another one. And if you managed to flip them, you won them. Kind of similar to the Dagji game from the Squid Game show, now that I think about it. So if you've never heard about this Tathos thing, at least you get the main idea now. I used to collect those as a kid and oh my god, I was obsessed. It was probably the biggest collector phase I've ever had in my life. I constantly whined to my mom to buy these bags of chips where you could get those pucks from. And I thought, well, instead of a teenager or a full adult, I could go for a young adult vibe. You know, adult doesn't mean old after all. I don't have to give her wrinkles, really. Plus, I still get mistaken for a 18-year-old in real life, so why wouldn't I make my trainer look young too, if she's a representation of myself? As a kid, I wanted to be a Pokemon trainer and obviously wish these creatures were real, just as you probably did too. But I never thought about what kind of trainer would I be or how would I dress. I know I'd probably have a balanced Pokemon team, or maybe leaning towards fire or ground types at most. So this challenge was a fun experiment in that sense too. Even if I hadn't gotten the sporty outfit from, that's the type of clothing I'd surely pick if I was a Pokemon trainer in real life. I already dress pretty sporty, or more like comfy, maybe, in real life. I love pretty dresses and frills and lots of accessories, but when it comes to actually wearing those, I'm just too lazy for that. I hate having to worry about my appearance, so I'd rather wear the most mundane clothes. Stuff that, in case it gets dirty or ripped, I won't have a heart attack over it, you know? Like, imagine running through a muddy field in a full-on ball gown. Absolutely not. Do I love the aesthetics? Yes. Do I love the suffering? No. Function over fashion, always. Unless the fashion is really, really cute, then I might make an exception. I think the clothes I drew on this Pokemon trainer version of Rina would be pretty close to what I would wear in a Pokemon universe. Something comfy, something that allows me to run through fields, climb mountains, and not die of heat. Because I'm always complaining the weather is too hot. Although, now that I think about it, that big hair would probably be annoying. I can picture those messy curls getting stuck around branches and bushes pretty easily. Ouch! That would hurt a lot. But well, I don't think I'd be one of those trainers that constantly look for adventures and challenge everyone that crosses their path. I'd probably just travel around, taking photos of pretty landscapes or drawing other Pokemons or plants I'd find along the way. I'd be a pretty chill trainer, probably. Just like in real life. Would you approach me if you saw me dressed up like this in the Pokemon universe? Oh, yeah, I ended up adding a third Pokemon because the composition felt a bit unbalanced on the right side. I added Reuniclus because at least it's a psychic type of Pokemon and it's cute and green. So I felt it would fit nicely with the color palette I already had planned. Reuniclus isn't a Pokemon I particularly like or that I would usually consider as part of my team. But I remember, I think it's on Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, there's this like Elite Four character or something. Her name is Amaris in English, Nerina in Spain. Again, I don't understand why some names changed that drastically from a region of the world to another, but anyway, I remember from the time I helped my wife beat them that they had such a strong and well-balanced team. And their damn Reuniclus was so well built. All their team was so well built in general. Very mindful of their weaknesses, their moves and abilities. But that Reuniclus in particular surprised me. I never thought it could be so strong and a good choice for a Pokemon team. They also follow the same round and chibi-like aesthetic as the other two. So yeah, I'll admit I picked that one because it was also closer to my comfort zone than others, okay? Man, the Elite Four of that DLC were wild. I wasn't playing that game. My wife was, but I'd watch her play every now and then. And when she got to that part of the story, I remember making a list of possible Pokemons she could use to beat those Elite Four, because they were all very tough. I made a huge list of each Pokemon weaknesses and their moves to keep in mind what could she bring onto her team that was actually useful, because she could not beat them easily. I don't know if these are just hard to beat for most people, or we both were just really bad at it. Anyway, I didn't want to spend too much time on this drawing because I was just doing it for the fun. So I tried to use a simpler rendering style to color it. Keyword being I tried. I don't know if this happens to you too, but when I get so used to a working method, either for coloring, line art, or whatever, it's so hard to change it for something else. Like, I was putting in the shadows and I couldn't stop thinking, this is too simple. The volume doesn't look good enough like this. So what did I do? I added more detail. But then I had to remind myself, this is too detailed now. The rest of the drawing looks unfinished in comparison. So I had to go back and forth several times among all the elements of this illustration and try until I got to a middle point that satisfied both what I had in mind and what my energy was capable of creating at that moment. I'm always trying to work more efficiently, and I think the key for me is to learn to be less perfect, or more like decent is already perfect. So there is no need for me to stress about super tiny details or making the most mind-blowing rendering there is, especially when I'm just drawing for fun or for practice. And I guess that's just my signal to start wrapping up before I ruin this drawing by stressing anymore on its details. What do you think? Could you tell which Pokemon type this trainer would be from a first look? Thanks so much for hanging out with me. This was fun. If you enjoyed your time here, let me know and maybe I can call you again some other time. Until then, good luck with your own art. You should give these kind of challenges a try if you haven't yet. They're really fun. Alright, I'll let you go. Stay positive and keep on practicing. Bye bye!